Hello and welcome to Adapt with Danette FM. My name is Danette Fenton-Menzies. I am a speaker, an author, an adaptability expert, and I also bring into this lovely conversation my co-host, Jez FM. We're in season 2 talking about problem solving and collaboration. Welcome, Jez.
Hello and welcome to the final episode of the season, everybody. I am the podcast producer here. Very exciting, and congratulations to Net. What an awesome season. We've seen huge numbers and it has been really a blast. I think if people even go back to the first episode, if you want to see how much of a sort of change we've had, go back to the first episode of this season. We have been doing so many things to try and get this thing looking better and sharp. We've added segments. We've had a great time. So this has been a really a bit of a journey of a season. For people that are new to this podcast, if you're feeling a bit stressed out by the rate of change in the world and you don't know sort of what to do with the future, this is a perfect podcast for you. Danette is an adaptability expert, and all of us need to adapt at the moment. So this is a perfect little resource for you. Now, Danette, I think before we get into everything, I think let's just reflect on the season that we've had here. So this is about problem solving and collaboration. We've done twice the amount of episodes we did in season 1. So, but as you mentioned before the chat here, that's because we did 2 topics. So, yes. 2 topics, twice the episodes, good decision. Did you have any things that this season sort of brings up for you and things you liked about the season?
So I love this season. And the reason we created 2 themes for this season is that I know that people struggle a lot with collaboration and also problem solving. So I wanted to bring in different conversations and to add to the book that I wrote last year, The Adaptable Leader. So this was always going to be, the book was the start, and then the podcast was sort of really to add additional resources for our readers. And so, the whole thing of we all bring different perspectives, and things like collaboration and problem solving, actually, we need to define what they are, how we're going to approach them, and we need to be able to welcome all sorts of divergent views rather than trying to go through with lots of speed. And you said this in the last podcast, Jez, that one of the things you noticed is the more time we invest in setting it up and planning and that, it seems to go smoother than if we just go straight in and try and get things done. So I love the whole series. I hope our listeners and viewers have found it really helpful. And I think this interview with Kanika is also going to sort of really nicely wrap it up as well.
Yes, I agree. And so today we'll be talking to Kanika Chopra, who is not only employee of Magical Learning, but also my partner, which is very exciting. So you'll actually notice in the video when we swap over, you'll be seeing the other side of my background if you're watching the video, just from another perspective, because we work next to each other. So that's very exciting.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that more. But first, Danette, we've got to go to the final Adapt the News of the season. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Alrighty, this is Adapt the News. This is the segment where we take a news story and we use your adaptable lens to look at it and take out some of the key information. Now, for the last 2 weeks, we've been looking at good news stories, and I thought for our final episode, why not have a strange and slightly ominous story?
Yes.
So this story is from CNN Business. It is written by Matt Egan, and the headline is, Mr. ChatGPT and other AI power players are going to the White House to discuss AI's massive thirst for energy. Now, this is a story that kind of brings in an interesting element of adaptability because we are looking at something that everybody basically considers the future, which is AI, and we are looking at one of the biggest problems that it has, which is that it uses a lot of energy. So, Danette, I'm going to leave those pieces to you. Do you want to put them together for us?
So the first thing is when we talk about collaboration and problem solving is sometimes what we create may have unintended effects. And in this instance, AI, and I'm just going to read because I wrote down, I think, a single ChatGPT request consumes 10 times as much electricity as a single Google search. Now, if you think about the amount, and people are only just starting to use AI, like there's a lot of people who are like, I haven't even started using it yet. So, great. AI is great as a tool. And we also need to be mindful of that it has flow-on effects in terms of things like electricity, impact on the environment and stuff. So when we are thinking about particularly problem solving, it's like, okay, this is something we need to consider because obviously this is something that the world's already got climate change issues without now having to sort of add to that the AI consumption. So I suppose I'd love to, me being me, get AI to come up with some ideas about how it could change that. And I think it's an opportunity for some of those massive providers of AI to look at, rather than just focus on things like profit and that. Not all of them do. So, but those that are doing really well, here's an opportunity to think bigger and long term about how do we create AI that is sustainable? So it's not necessarily impacting on the environment as much as it currently is. And in my book, I talk about the accepts model, and the last element, S, is around sustainability. And I think when we create stuff, we want it to do no harm, if at all possible, and certainly, if we can, have a positive impact. So I'd really love to see some collaboration and problem solving around how do we do this better, so it isn't chewing as much energy. Jez, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one. It's an interesting one. I mean, there's AI in sustainability. So,
Yes.
it literally, so it's just sitting there for someone to do a great branding element there. But I think that with this one, it's an interesting situation because it feels like AI has just appeared out of nowhere, and we're almost doing everything backwards from the fact that it exists.
Yes.
So this is another one of those challenges that's getting put in there. And I think that you are right. Maybe ChatGPT can solve this problem, but it also does feel like one of these things where we're going to have to look at a lot of different opinions and try a lot of things out and see what works, because it's just landed on us so quickly. We have to essentially now work backwards and hopefully fix it up. But as long as people are, I mean, they're looking into this right now. They're already addressing it. It's not a problem currently, but it is something that they can see being a problem shortly. So it's good that people are starting to look ahead to that. But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Alrighty, Danette. Well, that was our final Adapted News of the year. What a fun year of Adapted News it's been.
So good. Love it.
Now, Danette, before we jump into our conversation with Kanika, did you have any insights that you wanted to people to keep their eyes out for?
I loved the start of this conversation where she talked about her and her cousin and how she learnt to collaborate from being a typical kids where they were fighting with one another to the whole concept they took literally around sharing. So sharing is caring. So I love that. I really like Kanika's experience, and part of the reason I invited Kanika on the program was really she's done a lot of creative stuff and collaborated with lots of different people and has learnt some interesting lessons along the way. So I love that she highlighted some of the things where collaboration doesn't go so well, and I'll sort of prime people to listen to some ideas and to reflect, am I doing that? And also what creates really good collaboration. So it was a fabulous conversation, and we'll talk a little bit more at the end. What about you, Jez?
Yeah, no, I think I'm going to save mine for the end. So everybody, if you're watching, check out the backgrounds, and let's throw to your conversation between you, Danette, and Kanika Chopra.
Hello and welcome to Adapt with Danette FM. And today I am so excited because Kanika Chopra has joined us as our guest today. Now, some of you may know that Kanika does some work with Magical Learning. She's our social media director, and she does a number of amazing other things. So today we're going to be talking about collaboration because we're in season 2 and we're talking about collaboration and problem solving. And I'd love to welcome Kanika into the conversation. Kanika, hello, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Super excited. So Kanika, do you want to let our listeners and our viewers know a little bit about your background? Because you've got a pretty amazing background.
Yeah, thank you. Of course. So I am not originally from Australia. I was born and raised in Mumbai. I moved here about 8 years ago to study, and I did my master's in creative writing and literature. My undergrad is in media and journalism. And yeah, so after I moved here to study writing, I went through the whole process where it's really hard to go from like immigrant to resident. And that's finally happened in the last couple of years. So that's been really, really good. But in my time here, I have obviously worked for Magical Learning. And I work as a curator and for literary festivals specifically. And I work as an editor and curator for my own publication as well called More Than Melanin. This is all my literary stuff that I do. I also occasionally write myself, and I also teach sometimes, similar to Jeanette, but obviously not at the scale that Jeanette does. Um, I do workshops on collaboration within sort of like a creative context sometimes, like how to sort of bring like a creative project together in life. I also sometimes teach young people different elements of creative writing and stuff. But yeah, I just have my finger in a lot of little things that I do.
Which is exactly why I invited you on the Adapt with Danette FM podcast, because I love that you've got that variety. And I also love that you bring that creative space to the conversation today. So let's start with our first question, which is, what have you seen or experienced that helps you with collaboration?
I think for me, this is very strange, but like when I was a kid, I had a cousin who I was very close to in age. We were just 2 years apart, and we used to fight like siblings. We were always just like, like there's when you're like getting cut like a slice of cake or poured like a glass of like cordial or whatever, you're just like, who has more? Who has the bigger size? So we were really like that as kids. And our parents would always go like, sharing is caring. And like sometimes that worked, but other times they'd be like, the more you put out there, the more you're likely to get back. So then once my cousin and I took that quite literally, we were just like, no, 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 you have it. Because we just thought it would double what we'd get back.
I love that.
I would say that was the basis, I think, of my understanding of collaboration. It's not the same thing, but collaboration is to a certain extent sharing.
Yes.
It is about sharing the responsibility. It is about sharing the vision. It's about sharing the solutions on how we arrive to that vision. And I think I found myself like what's helped my experience necessarily with collaboration is just trying it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of people struggle with collaboration because they think it takes away from like, I guess, the glory, or like,
Yes.
it feels like you're not centering yourself.
Yes.
And it feels like your work is not shining through or whatever.
Yes.
Or like your ideas are not properly being executed. But I think what I found with collaboration just after trying it is that I found that the rewards were better. I feel like I got recognized not only then for my ability to do the job I set out to do, but for my ability to work with other people to sort of make the project come to life. And there was something really rewarding about seeing not only me getting the most out of the project that I was working on, but also other people benefiting from it.
Yep.
But yeah, I also work with young people. So for me, with collaboration, it's just about giving young creatives of different kinds like the platform to sort of like take their ideas that they have to like a sort of more publishable level or the next level. Yeah, I just also enjoy doing that. I enjoy seeing young people who especially from marginalized communities do something that like they wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to do or try or whatever.
Oh, I love that. So let's now flip that. And I'd love to hear an example of where you've experienced poor collaboration. And we don't necessarily need to name names, but I'm really curious, what were the impacts of that poor collaboration?
I think it affected like the whole team that was working, and it didn't only affect the project, it affected the interpersonal relationships of the team within the context of poor collaboration. I think it was also our audience could tell. The people that you're sort of putting your product out to, whether it's a publication, whether it's like, I don't know, a show, an event, a festival, whatever, people can tell. It's like surprising how obvious sometimes a lack of collaboration is. It doesn't people can tell. It's just, and it messes up the interpersonal relationships. It messes up the goal that you're working towards ultimately, and it makes it harder to do it next time, and it makes it harder to trust those people that you're working with again.
Totally. So was there like an example you could give without obviously naming names of what demonstrated that poor collaboration?
I think what demonstrated that poor collaboration was just, I guess, like going back and changing a lot of the work the other people did. I think it meant the one person that I was working with that was taking a lot of it. It also for them meant they took a lot of responsibility, and they ended up not doing as good a job because they put so much on their own plate
Yes.
instead of collaborating with other people. I think it brought down the quality of their work in general. Yeah, just I guess specific examples was just like changing people's work. I think also undermining your colleagues or undermining people around other people, that is not collaborative. That is not,
Yes.
I mean, I feel like even if in general, it's just if you have a problem with someone you're working with, you don't air out your grievances in front of your clients or whatever. That's
Totally.
just, you just assume that's common practice. But like little things like that, or like
Yep.
just every time someone other than this person like sort of had an opinion or an idea, there was like they'd come up with an excuse to sort of not use it, or they'd come up with a reason to sort of move off that.
Yep.
And I guess like also, yeah, I don't know if this is lack of collaboration, but yeah, I think this is just generally, it's like these little things, and it's sometimes hard to see until the
Yes.
very end, because it's sometimes easy to just assume that this person is trying to be extra helpful by taking everything onto themselves.
Yep.
It can seem quite well-meaning, and sometimes it is, but I think also with collaboration, it's important to go into these relationships with people that you are going to collaborate with on, like, how are we going to communicate? What are our boundaries? How are
Yep.
we going to resolve conflict? Like, how do
I
you
love those
best
questions.
how do you best take feedback?
Yep.
Because I think last year it was the first time I had the opportunity to hire people
Yes.
for my own publication. So I was like doing interviews and stuff. And I think a lot of the questions I asked was like, if you're doing a bad job or if you're doing something that's annoying me,
Yep.
how should I tell you?
Yep.
Like, how
Nice.
will you best receive it?
Yes. Yeah. I love that you're thinking from their perspective. So you empower them to be able to, you to understand them, but them also to feel empowered to be able to give you feedback and stuff as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I went like, okay, sometimes this is my problem.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like, I'm someone like, if I have an idea at 2 a.m., I will message the group at 2 a.m.
Yep.
But I was like, I want you all to mute this chat. Okay. Only log on to it when
Yep.
you're doing your hours.
Yes.
I just put things there as I need them to be
Get out
there.
of your
But
brain.
yeah, I'm just like, because it's a creative process as well.
Yes.
So sometimes just like creative idea. I'm gonna put this here when you're doing your hours for me.
Yes.
Respond as you see fit. But I think with collaboration, setting boundaries, asking how to deal with conflict, because like I would probably take feedback very differently than even you would take feedback.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
if I'm messing up, I think the easiest way to solve it is just like you tell the person they're messing up in the way that they're most likely to receive it, not in the way that you want to do it.
Yes. Yeah.
You
I love
know,
that.
and it becomes, and I don't know why people don't have these conversations before they enter into relationships. And I think across all relationships,
Yep. Yep.
like if we fight, how do you best work? Like,
Yes.
how do we resolve this?
Yes.
Like, are you a yeller when you fight? Like, do you shut down?
Yep.
I think different people, obviously different things, but
Yes.
yeah, all important questions to ask, I think.
Oh, I love that. Oh, let's go on to the next one. So this one was Jez added a bit too. So I really like that as well. And I think given the work you do, this will be one that you bring some really good insights in. So based on your experience, what tips do you have for others, including young people, which is what Jez added, around developing their collaboration skills? So what can people do, whether they're starting out or whether they're at the tail end of their career? What are some things they can do to develop their collaborating skills?
With anything, I think like consume successful projects that have done what you wanted to do. So like, I mean, so I guess, again, depends on what the collaborative project is, but I'm going to talk into the context of something creative. Like putting together a publication that has like maybe one cohesive idea, but has like maybe like two curators, different designers, whatever. Find publications similar to the ones that have used those many people, see how the project has turned out. I guess critically engage with it, see how you can see maybe the different threads of the different creatives running through it. Because like, I think tone of voice and things comes out even individually through collaboration. Like I just worked on a festival, but like there were some events you could clearly tell like it was one person's brainchild versus, so even though we all collectively worked on these events or we all collectively worked on the festival, I think individual people's work, taste, abilities still shown through.
Yes.
So I think realistically, to start collaboration, look at successful projects of collaboration. I think what I said previously, ask yourself what your boundaries are, ask the people you choose to work with what their boundaries are. I think getting to know them as people is as important, because I feel like I'm not saying you have to be BFFs, because I understand there are like, you don't always have to love everyone you work with, but you can respect them for the work that they do. You don't have to like spend every waking minute with them, but if they are someone that you are entering into a work relationship with them, it's the same thing. Conflict, boundaries, how do they like to work versus how you like to work, where you guys reach, where do you all meet in the middle, like what is your middle ground, and I think just listen a lot. I think also keep in mind that ultimately, if you have entered into a collaboration with someone, make sure that you really care about the project and you really care about the outcome of it, so you're focused on doing what is ultimately best for the project and not best for just yourselves. I think also there will be problems. So like just accept that. Just be like, things are going to go wrong. And like when they do go wrong, also like realistically approach them. Don't be like, oh, it's not too bad. And like don't also like catastrophize. There are like everyone goes like it's so black or white, but there are like lots of shades of gray in the middle. So you could expect like the worst thing to happen to your project. So you've done a project, nobody ever looks at it, like it's not successful at all, but that's like worst case scenario. It could simply just be like, oh, a light didn't work at the function that you were like, you know what I mean? So there's shades of gray. So don't catastrophize, don't undermine it. I think try and just like look at things quite realistically, and sometimes that's hard to do. But do that. I also think like when you're working with other people, give yourself room. Like every time I freak out about something, I allow myself to freak out. Like don't try and stifle the reactions you would normally have, but don't let those also control your judgment and your decision making process and affect the project. But just like also don't deny yourself those feelings. I think treating yourself as an entity and as like a human being in these processes and not a product still helps.
Yes. And it's good brain science, because if we push it down, it's going to come out at the worst possible moment. Yeah. So I love that. All right. What's your favorite example of collaboration, and particularly why is it your favorite example?
I think it's definitely changed because I've gone through like a whole new festival in the last couple of weeks. But I think my favorite example of collaboration was during the festival. We had a few people that weren't well or injured, myself, or like family emergencies, and we're a small team, but we also have like volunteers and stuff. But I think everybody very selflessly just filled in for everyone. And despite all of this, with everyone was just had everyone's back. Like even within collaboration, sometimes you will receive criticism for your project or whatever you're doing from external parties. Not everyone's going to be happy with you. Not everyone's going to like it. Not everyone's going to be amicable. But I think my team really validated all of these things for me. Every time I was insecure, every time I wasn't sure about something, every time something felt off with someone that I was maybe chatting to, or, someone just like, I'm just like, is the tone of this email weird?
Yep.
You know, am I having like a bad attitude day, or like, is this actually a strange email? I think it was in those little things where like I always felt like my team had my back. That was really beautiful. And I think also um everyone was really supportive of everyone. Everyone gave credit where credit was due. Nobody tried to sort of step on anyone's toes. In fact, it was almost like to the other spectrum of it, where everyone was like, no, 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 this is all you. No, 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 you did such a good job. But it was really wholesome. I feel like it was very confidence inducing. It felt really good.
Nice.
Like that even if I did mess up, I know my team was like on my side and I wasn't
Yes.
afraid of messing up. Like
Yep.
if I made a mistake, like I wasn't afraid of it. Like I think it went without saying that being fallible was okay,
Yeah, nice.
so
Yep.
that's not like oh, we've had a big mistake and we've all gotten together to fix it. But I think just in the general attitude around making a mistake, the general attitude around just like supporting your teammates because you're all on the same side, instead of like, I don't know, like letting a vendor talk badly to one of
Yes.
your teammates,
Nice.
like
Yep.
I know that's not a huge thing, but like when you're
It is a
doing so
huge thing.
much, yeah, it's just so validating. And
Yep.
I think in collaboration, just like having someone's back
Yeah.
was really good with like these little things, they add up.
Yep. I love that. And what a great example. And totally, because when you know someone's got your back, you can make mistakes and it's okay and everyone can learn, as opposed to when you know no one has your back, you don't feel safe, you don't
Yeah.
risk, etc. So it's a great example. Love it. So curious, anything else you'd like to share, include any helpful resources that if people are starting out in collaboration or just interested in collaboration, what are some things that can help?
I think just practice collaboration, just like cook with your friends and try not to like take over the kitchen. I think that because you know how a lot of people like struggle with sharing the kitchen or
Yes.
giving up control, or uh, do something like that. Do like a little fun little project with your friends. But I think cooking with someone, especially if you have issues in the kitchen or just like whatever, I think that's really good because my partner Jez, obviously, when we were younger, he would cook and I would just like backseat cook because I'm just like, this
Yes.
boy, he's not doing it right. And he wasn't.
Yep.
I'm gonna put that out there. But I was like, I'm not gonna like hover, like
Yes.
backstreet driving. I was just like,
Yes.
I'm not gonna hover. And I stopped doing it very long ago.
Yep.
Um, but it was something I actively had to work on.
Yes.
It wasn't nice what I was
Yep.
doing. But I was just like, because I think it starts with the little things like this. Because I'm sure there's something in someone's life where they like doing it
Yeah.
their way.
Yes.
Invite someone into the activity,
Yeah. Nice.
have them over, be like, hey, this is something I really, really like doing. Do you want to join me? And I think in an exercise in restraint, don't tell them what to do in
Yes.
your space.
Yep.
I feel like that seems like quite extreme, but at the same time, not that extreme. But I think depending on the person and how
Mhm.
pedantic you are about your space, it's an exercise in restraint and it's an exercise in sharing.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
And you got to both learn a little bit about each other in that instance too.
yeah, yeah. And I don't think I have like any specific books or resources
Yep.
in collaboration, but again, read any book written by two people.
Yeah.
Watch things, read things that are written by two people, consume, like I said earlier, just consume projects that have been collaborated and see how you can see people still individually shining through in it.
That.
Because also it depends, because if you're listening to this from a business context, it's obviously so different from like if you're listening to this from like a art project context.
Yeah.
But I think the principle ultimately is the same. Just it's about learning to give up control and kind of understanding that that's not the worst thing.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. So,
Yeah.
Kanika, I am sure that some of our listeners and viewers would like to reach out to you. So, where would be the best places for them to find you?
You can find me on Instagram. I can have my link and stuff in the bio of
Nice.
the podcast.
Excellent.
My Instagram page, which is my More Than Melanin page, is the best way to get in touch with me. You can also get in touch with me on my personal Instagram. Both of these things also link to my email. So I guess if you want to have like a more detailed consult or more detailed chat or like whatever, I think email
Nice.
is best. You can also buy issue 3 of my magazine, which is
Which
called
is
More Than
awesome.
Melanin. This one is themed to the end of the world, and it is meant to be satirical, so very exciting.
And it's a great addition. I've got all 3, just saying. Well, Kanika, can I say thank you so much? Been an awesome episode. Really appreciate, given you've got a really busy week. And to our listeners and our viewers, thank you also for listening and viewing and also sharing. And as always, stay adaptable.
Wow, what a fun conversation, and what a great conversation to wrap up the season. And
Yes.
Great job to Kanika, crushed it. Danette, did you have any key things that you took away from this conversation?
I really love the idea about setting up the conversations for collaboration right at the start. Like, how do you like to problem solve? How do you like feedback and that? So just even asking those so that people can have good conversations before it happens rather than addressing it when it's already gone a bit pear-shaped. I also really like that bit about the poor collaboration where someone just decided to overwrite what people said, took on way more work than they should have because they wanted to have that control. Yeah, I just love all the questions that Kanika sort of asks. And I really like the example she used at the end. I'm just looking down at my notes there, that you're always going to have problems. Things are always going to go wrong. And that's okay. So accept it. And so if you need to go blah, it's okay to go, I need to go blah, and then get over it and then go back to the problem solving. I really love how she's created environments where she knows and her people know that everyone's got each other's back. So things like failure, which are bound to happen as we collaborate and problem solve, it's okay because we're going to learn from these. It's not a disaster, which is what brains tend to do when we don't know that people have our back. So I really loved those insights that she brought to the conversation. What about you, Jez?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to do 2 things with this final debrief. My first one was just like, I like the, and it comes back to the thing that we were talking about before, setting up so that when you get hit by fate, you're all right.
Yep.
The whole concept of More Than Melanin is so much about building people up. You know, it's about helping people get to that first level. And, Kanika just did the Emerging Writers Festival here in Melbourne, which was about a month ago at the time of release of this episode. And that Emerging Writers Festival is about people getting their first opportunity to kind of get up and explain their writing, people that are sort of, just doing their own hobby thing, or maybe some people that are a little bit more established. And what's really nice is when Kanika puts on an event where someone's first time they're talking and their credits involve More Than Melanin. It's just, you can, there's such nice things where that's happened. And so it really comes from building people up, and you can tell that when you sort of experience it, and it's really fun. But I wanted to also highlight, because this wasn't fully touched on in the conversation, but just to give a bit more in-depth knowledge, given that I do know Kanika extremely well, More Than Melanin actually was an idea about, when people look at works that get accepted by people of other races other than white, typically these stories are harrowing life stories, it's about, some traumatic events that have happened in their life. It may touch on fiction, and that's not necessarily the people's fault. It's the editors choosing to put those, to surface those stories. But what More Than Melanin's about is actually saying, let's be more equal by letting people from all backgrounds write dumb stuff if they want, like, let's let everybody have fun. It doesn't have to be the most harrowing thing. People from India can write funny, chaotic dystopian stories as well as anybody. Why don't we give them the opportunity? So that's what More Than Melanin is. It's a really fun, it's really just about fun. It's got really nothing to do, with trying to make people feel sort of any particular emotion. It's just about showing a sort of smorgasbord of different emotions.
Yes.
sort of things that people can do. So I think that that's really important because it's such a good thing, and you can pick up issue 3 right now, End of the World. It's a sort of comedy special. Really good. And it comes with little bonus bits and pieces. It's not just a zine. You get lots of little bits and pieces. But I want to just highlight that for people, because when you see it in that sense, it's just all about building people up. From its inception, it's about how can we create this more fun space for all of us to live in. So very exciting, and I thought it was a great conversation as well there, Danette. Well, Danette, shall we jump into our final mailbag of the season?
Bring it on.
All right, this is our final Ask and Adapt. Alrighty, Danette, this is Ask and Adapt. This is the segment where listeners can write in and they can ask you questions where they need help adapting, and you give them your insights. You can do that in many ways, and we'll let people know what the theme for next season is. But if you want to write in questions at any time, you can do it in a couple of different ways. You can leave comments on Spotify and YouTube, and you can also email us at adaptwithdanette@gmail.com. All right, Danette, for the end of season 2, our question, is from Ella. All right, it says, "Hey, Danette, congratulations on a great season so far. I am loving the show. What is the importance of relaxing and taking vacation time when it comes to being better at problem solving and collaboration? Will my trip to Bali next month make me better at problem solving and collaboration, in brackets, aka what I should say to my boss? Thank you, Ella."
Ella, I love it. And can I say, if you use the time to relax, I can guarantee that your problem-solving collaboration will improve, because you'll be working with your brain. So we know that your brain does its heavy lifting when it's napping, when it's taking rest, and when it's on holiday. So I reckon priming your brain before you go on holidays to go, what are some big things that maybe you could just work on, and I could come back with some good ideas at the end of the holiday, and then just leave your brain to do its thing. Take a notebook and a pen or pencil, that can help. I also think a lot of people have forgotten how to basically sign off when they go on leave. And I think there's new legislation around, people not having to look at work outside their work hours. And that's actually what the brain is telling us anyway. So I've started this experiment a couple of months ago, which is I do a digital detox pretty much every weekend. So one day I just don't look at any devices. It does include the vacuum cleaner and the washing machine as well, just saying. And on that, I am very deliberate to do other things. So get outside and garden. This weekend we worked on the grape trellis that we had. So my grandfather built a grape trellis and it was looking a bit sad. So we've been sort of painting and putting up new bits of wood. And so we did some of that over the weekend, and just reading and relaxing. So I think on holidays, as much as possible, get off your device a bit and actually just go and explore and enjoy things. And Jez, I would say, given you're off on an adventure very shortly with Kanika, what are some ideas you've got about going on holidays and the whole collaboration and problem solving?
I think with the holidays thing, first of all, good insights there, Danette. Yes. I really liked those. I just think that with holidays and what have you, to me, it's not surprising that people come up with really good ideas when they're relaxing or in the shower or places where you just can't be interrupted, because I think it's that ongoing ability to have thoughts, and then also the ongoing ability to not have thoughts as well, that gives you the space and it lets your subconscious relax for 2 minutes and then give you some good stuff. I think that, how a lot of us live, it's quite unsustainable.
Yes.
And so that's why holidays are so important. A lot of people work really, really hard and somehow have the resources to do it. It's amazing. So anytime you get to replenish those, I think it's really important when it can be really difficult in other times. So absolutely. I think you got to get that one. You got to ask for 3 weeks off there, Ella. I would say just extra problem solving and collaboration building time. But yeah, no, I think you're on the right path, and enjoy Bali.
Yeah. And I also love, going to a different country opens your brains up to different ways of doing things and thinking. So I think that actually it builds your education as well. So I love that, Jez. Thank you, Ella. Great question.
Awesome. Well, Danette, we've come to the very end of season 2 of Problem Solving and Collaboration. I know it's sad. It's been such a good season.
Yeah.
Did you have anything you wanted to leave the listeners with at the end of this season on problem solving and collaboration, or even on today's episode with Kanika?
I actually really just loved the end of Kanika's episode, where she was talking about one of the ways to build your collaboration skills is to cook together in the kitchen. try an activity. And she shared a little bit about how when you first got together, she wanted to control how you were cooking and how that's changed. So I think I love that, we don't have to do everything just at work. We can do things, whether it's collaborating with people on an issue in your community, for argument's sake. For example, today I was interviewing, and I'm going to hold up his book because it's beautiful. For Magical Learning, I interviewed Aviv Polti and then forgot to actually hit record. So we're going to have to redo the podcast. But he took a trip with his family to Cambodia and has created a non-government organisation over there that's had this massive impact on the local rural community through education. And so we'll promote that in Magical Learning. But I think if you want to see a different way of problem solving, collaborating, Empowered by Aviv Polti, which is coming out, is a great book. And so I think that what I love also about what we've been doing over this season is we've been talking to different people across the world around areas that they have different perspectives and insights. And I also love that, we've also got the Magical Learning. So some of our guests come because we've interviewed them on Magical Learning as well. And so there's an example of we've got two different elements in our businesses that we've been able to collaborate and problem solve and work together with others. So I actually think I love it. I can't wait for next season. I'm thinking next season we might look at experimentation and experimenting, because I think that's a really important part of being adaptable. But we'll wait and see. We'll put a bit of a teaser, see what people think they might want to listen to. And Jez, I have to say, thank you so much. You've made this podcast extraordinary. I really appreciate all the work you've put in. And to our listeners and viewers and all of those who've shared our podcast, thank you so much. Jez, did you want to add anything before I sign off?
Yes, I wanted to say thank you, Danette, for putting in so much effort with this podcast. It's been so fun. I feel like this season we really stepped it up a whole nother level, and it's been really, really fun. For people that don't know, Danette has been doing these podcasts. Danette records about 100 podcasts a day, so so it's been nice that Danette's put in so much effort to get these recorded, and I really appreciate that. So, yeah, Danette, thank you so much for absolutely crushing it this season, and looking forward to season 3. Did you have anything you wanted to leave our listeners with for last time?
So everyone, we are coming up to the summer season here in Australia. So I hope that all of you get to have a little bit of a break and relax and enjoy yourself. And as always, if you've got any adaptability challenges, please reach out to us. And until next time, stay adaptable.